Welcome to the online public meeting for the I-25 Improved project from Comanche to Montgomery. This is our public meeting, our online version of the public meeting tonight. We're going to take a few moments. I can see the participants that are connecting and logging in. We want to give enough time that people can get connected to the meeting. I'm going to go through some housekeeping items now, but I'm also going to repeat those as we kind of jump into our formal presentation. So we'll start in just a few minutes. The presentation will take approximately 25 to 30 minutes, and then we'll have a live Q&A. At the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A button. It's kind of bottom center. You can click on that and submit any questions that you might have. I would encourage you to read all the questions that are in there already. If there's a question or a topic that you wanted to ask about, instead of asking it again, just hit the thumbs up button, and that'll push it to the top of our list tonight to make sure that we get to it. Also want to point out that we will not be able to ask, or the participants will not be able to ask questions verbally tonight, just using the Q&A function at the bottom. And then the last piece that I want to hit on quickly as we wait for participants to join the meeting is our contact information. These boards are posted online, so the boards for the public meeting are available. This information's there, but if you want to take a picture of the screen, or if you want to jot these down, we have our website, www.i25improve.com. We also have a hotline that you can call at any time. If we don't answer, please leave a message and we will call you back as soon as possible. The hotline number is 505-785-ROAD. or 505-785-7623. And the last way to get a hold of us is through our email, and that is info@i25improve.com. So we're going to take a little bit of time, give another few minutes for people to join. If you have questions during the presentation, a reminder, please use the Q&A function at the bottom, and we'll go to those questions after the presentation. And then we'll also be talking about how you can submit comments as part of our environmental process tonight. And so again, thank you for joining. We're just going to take another minute or two and let people join. I'm watching that number and we're still getting a few connecting. And then also want to point out that we are broadcasting live on Facebook through the New Mexico Department of Transportation page. And if you're on Facebook tonight watching live, you can also provide comments or questions through the comment feature. We'll be tracking that and trying to answer those live. And again, as we kick into our formal presentation, I will go back through all this information again, just to make sure everybody joining is able to get it. So thanks again for joining. We'll wait about another minute or two, and then we'll go ahead and jump straight into our presentation. I can see that we're already getting questions. And so John, thank you for submitting. Others, if you have questions now, feel free to use that Q&A feature at the bottom. And if not, as the presentation goes on, if things come up, please use that to submit questions, and then we'll do our best to answer them. If we don't answer them, or you feel like you didn't get an answer tonight, you can always use our contact information to get a hold of us. So we're going to give about one more minute, and then we'll jump straight into our formal presentation. Okay, it looks like the bulk of our participants have been able to connect to the meeting. Want to welcome everybody tonight. Thank you for joining the I-25 Improved online public meeting. The section of I-25 that we're talking about is from Comanche to Montgomery. We are going to have a formal presentation. We'll take approximately 25 to 30 minutes, and then we will have a live Q&A session that you guys can submit questions, and we'll try to answer those. We have, it looks like nearly 50 participants in our Zoom meeting. And we are also streaming live through Facebook Live. And so if you're joining us through either option, we will be monitoring both. And so if you have comments through Facebook, go ahead and submit those, and we'll try to get your questions answered as well. Before we get started, I do want to recognize and thank the public officials that are with us tonight. We really appreciate your time and support. If you are a public official, and for instance, a member of the city council, county commissioner, transportation commissioner, legislator, etc., please put your name and your role or your title in the Q&A function so that we can recognize you for participating tonight. As we go through the presentation, we are going to be collecting questions that we can try to answer with a live panel. If you can go to the bottom of your screen and click on the Q&A button, and you can type in a question there. The comment feature or the chat feature is disabled for tonight, and so the Q&A is really the only way to reach us. There will not be verbal questions asked tonight. So if you can, find the Q&A button, click it, and submit. One request that I have is that you will read the questions that are in there. For instance, John has submitted a question about curb and gutter. If you have a similar question or a topic, and it's instead of asking a separate question that's similar, just hit the thumbs up button and it'll vote it up to the top. And as we go, if we have questions, just go ahead and submit those, and we'll address those in our Q&A portion towards the end. If you don't receive a response, I want to give you our contact information again right now. And again, these boards and this information are loaded on our website. You can download those there, or feel free to snap a picture or jot these down. But if you feel like we didn't answer your question, please call the hotline or the email. The hotline number is 505-785-ROAD or 505-785-7623. You can also email us at info@i25improve.com. And for more information or to stay informed throughout the project, you can visit our website, www.i25improve.com. I want to introduce you to our presenters. We have a number of panelists that you may meet as we're answering your questions, but the main presenters tonight will be Joe Caceres. He's with the New Mexico Department of Transportation and is serving as the project manager for I-25 Improved Comanche to Montgomery. We have Mike Worrell with Horrocks Engineers, and he is the consultant project manager leading this effort. And myself, I'm Bo Hunter. I'm also with Horrocks Engineers, overseeing the public involvement for this effort. I want to turn the time over to Mike. Mike's going to do a high-level overview of the project as we jump into our presentation. Again, if you have questions, I see some of those coming in. I also see that we have our Transportation Commissioner for District 3 on. So please submit. If you're a public official, put your name and your title and your role in there. And then also if you have questions throughout, please make sure you get those in. Mike, go ahead and tell us a little bit more about the project.
Thank you, Bo. The New Mexico Department of Transportation, in partnership with the Federal Highway Administration, or the FHWA, is working on a project to improve a section of I-25 in through the corridor in Albuquerque. The project area is focused on I-25 primarily between, well, including in between the Comanche Road interchange on the south and the Montgomery Boulevard interchange to the north. This project proposes to, number one, construct an additional southbound through lane on the freeway. Currently, it narrows down. There's a bottleneck southbound at the Montgomery overpass with only 3 through lanes. So the project proposes to add an additional through lane there. It also proposes to add advanced U-turns. Many people refer to them as Texas turnarounds or Texas U-turns, to enhance the function of Pan America Freeway frontage road system. Then including, or it improves both the Comanche and Montgomery interchanges by constructing new wider bridges in the case of Comanche, I-25 going over Comanche, in the case of Montgomery, Montgomery going over I-25. And it updates bicycle and pedestrian facilities and provides an additional connection at Montgomery to the North Diversion Channel trail, the trail that runs along the North Diversion Channel. It reconfigures both on-ramps and off-ramps throughout the project area and reduces merging conflicts to improve traffic flow and improves access to the frontage road system in I-25. I'm going to turn it over to Joe for a bit to kind of describe how we got to this point.
Thanks, Mike. So this project is building on analysis from past studies that we've done. The studies evaluated about 7 miles of roadway along I-25 from I-40 to Tramway. We began these studies in 2010. In 2010, we did a phase 1A. It's an initial corridor study. That was followed up in 2011 with a phase 1B, which looked at alternatives and analyzed alternatives for this corridor. A couple of projects came out, and then in 2016, we supplemented the phase 1B with an updated study that was used to capture growth in the Albuquerque area. The phase 1A study evaluated existing deficiencies and future deficiencies based on the Council of Governments projections for traffic along the North I-25 corridor. It also proposed strategies to address some of these deficiencies. That kicked us into a phase 1B. The phase 1B identified the need for the I-25 corridor and the purpose for these improvements, along with alternatives that were analyzed to meet the purpose and need. From that study, we had a recommended alternative, a final alternative that we'll be implementing, we're looking to implement through this corridor. The supplemental phase B, which was done in phase 1B, which was done in 2016, captured improvements from a couple of projects. One was the I-25 Paseo del Norte interchange, and also the addition of a 4th lane in the northbound direction from Comanche to Alameda. These two projects, along with increased traffic projections, warranted an updated study. So this supplemental phase 1B completed the project in the study planning phase, and now we're moving into design and construction. So planning and development. So what you're looking at is a timeline of past and current milestones. They have been part of the project planning since the beginning. These past studies evaluated the needs for the entire North I-25 corridor from I-40 to Tramway. Some of these improvements, as I previously mentioned, have already been constructed. The northbound widening was constructed in the winter of 2012. The I-25 PDN, Paseo del Norte improvement project, was completed in 2014. Southbound widening from Jefferson to San Mateo, that was completed in 2018. Previous planning studies that I mentioned have established the I-25 corridor needs and improvements. The following purpose and needs for I-25 from I-40 to Tramway apply to this current project. Improve efficiency to the freeway, improve efficiency to ramps at Comanche and Montgomery, frontage road improvements, and interchange bridges. The North I-25 corridor, this project, North I-25 corridor, is to address the continued growth in Albuquerque and the surrounding areas. Improvements are needed to address travel demand and congestion, physical deficiencies with roadway geometry and bridge heights, and safety issues with merging on and off ramp traffic. I'm going to hand it over to Mike. He's going to talk a little more about traffic conditions and the proposed improvements for this project.
Thank you, Joe. Efficient freeway operations depend on a balance between with capacity exceeding the demand. Current conditions are resulting in congestion when traffic demand approaches or exceeds that available capacity of the interchanges. For example, southbound I-25, as I've already mentioned, bottlenecks in the morning where I-25 loses a fourth through lane at underneath the Montgomery overpass. The signalized intersections on Montgomery Boulevard back up, particularly during evening rush hour, and oftentimes require drivers to wait for multiple signal cycles. The interchanges are operating at capacity, and the existing frontage roads and business access points conflict. And if improvements are not made, congestion and delays are only going to continue to get worse as the area continues to grow. Those 2040 traffic conditions have shown us that there will be increased congestion and delay at the intersections adjacent to the freeway and on the freeway, including its associated on and off ramps. The preferred alternative, Joe described the phase 1B study. It identified the preferred alternative, which will be evaluated as the proposed action in an environmental document and processing phase for the project. The designs we are showing today, we expect to change as the project progresses and advances, but the overall project goals will remain the same. Little bit more detailed description: improvements at the Comanche Road interchange would include a new and wider bridge over Comanche Road. It also includes the advanced U-turns on both sides of Comanche Road, or as I referred to them also as the Texas turnarounds. And in the case of Comanche, those would go underneath the bridge. The on and off ramps will be reconfigured, and there will be improved connectivity through the interchange for both bicyclists and pedestrians along Comanche Road by constructing sidewalks and buffered bike lanes on both sides of the road. And then in addition, businesses and properties in the area, there will be some adjustment to the accesses in order to improve those operations. Then on I-25, improvements include constructing an additional southbound lane, again, beginning at north of Montgomery Boulevard, interchange tying into the current loop ramp entrance lane. And then it also includes lengthening of auxiliary lanes. Frontage roads would be improved, and with the construction of abraded on and off ramps on both sides that cross over one another to separate entering and exiting traffic. These braided ramps would help eliminate merging and weaving conflicts similar to those to the northbound on-ramp from San Mateo and the northbound off-ramp to Ellison, north of this project. This entire configuration reduces weaving movements and streamlines the traffic flow on the freeway. This improvement would result in some changes to some of the business access in that immediate area as well. Then the Montgomery Boulevard interchange improvements would include construction of a new wider bridge, about twice as wide as it is today, over I-25. That includes the addition of through lanes for 3 through lanes in each direction, and then additional turn lanes. It includes, again, a construction of advanced U-turns or the Texas turnarounds on both sides of Montgomery Boulevard to enhance the function of the frontage road system. It includes reconfiguration of on and on ramps. And again, at Montgomery, it includes improved connectivity for both bicyclists and pedestrians with the inclusion of buffered bike lanes across the Montgomery Boulevard interchange. Includes sidewalks on both sides of the interchange and a new trail connection between Montgomery Boulevard and the trail along the north diversion channel. And then again, also a number of the accesses will be adjusted for some of the businesses in the area. And I'm going to turn the time back to Joe, talk about the proposed aesthetic theme.
Thanks, Mike. To tackle the aesthetics for this project, an appointed committee made up of local leaders from the city, state, and the artist community was used along with the call for entry, which is known as the cafe process. This process was used to solicit aesthetic recommendations for the I-25 Comanche project. Ultimately, after looking through several artist concepts, the committee selected artist Kenny Davis. His artwork will be applied throughout the corridor. This theme is a blue diamond. It uses textures, colors, lighting up applied structures like the bridges and some of the retaining walls. You can see on this slide here some of his concepts, the diamond pattern at the top of the bridge. You can see the lighting and color applied to the base of the structure. This theme and concept will be applied throughout the corridor for the piers, some of the retaining walls, and whatever else Kenny comes up with. So we'll review his concepts and keep working with him to fine tune what we're looking at. The next part of the project, the phase 1C, it's the environmental documentation and processing phase. So this phase began earlier this year, spring 2021, and the purpose of this environmental phase is to meet the National Environmental Policy Act, which is known as NEPA, as outlined by FHWA. Within that study, we're looking to identify some environmental factors for the project. Some of the resources and factors that are being considered include noise, air quality, biological factors, cultural and visual resources, land use and development, community services, access to community facilities, safety, and some others. What we're planning to do is analyze and document resources that are there, determine if the resources present could be impacted by the project. And then the design build team will work together and minimize impacts during design development and construction. Environmental commitments will be developed to ensure project impact avoidance, minimization, mitigation, and whatnot occurs during construction. These commitments will be given to the contractor as part of performance specs so that these environmental commitments can be carried from study through construction. The final environmental documentation will serve as a project authorization for our final design, our right-of-way process, and of course, construction. I want to pass it back to Mike to talk about some of the timing of the project. Mike.
Thank you, Joe. Our team will continue to develop the design and complete the environmental process in early 2022. Then by summer 2022, the project will be advertised for design build proposals. And then by fall 2022, we're expecting a design build team to be selected who will both design and construct the project beginning in early 2023. And then that project we expect to last through the year 2024. A little bit on final design and construction. The selected team will both design and construct the project simultaneously under one contract. And design build is being used as a project delivery process because the selection encourages innovative solutions to be brought to the table through just the competitive environment of that selection for an overall best value to the project. And that's all I have. So Bo, back to you.
Thanks, Mike and Joe, for walking us through the project. If you have questions, it looks like we have a handful of those that have been submitted. We're going to get to those in just a moment. But if you have questions that they've come up, please go ahead and submit those. We also have some questions we've received as we've been out in the community, meeting with property owners and businesses and the council. We have some generic questions that we're going to ask as well, just to get more information out to this group. Also, I want to talk a little bit about our active comment period. We are accepting comments through August 27th. If you're interested in providing a comment, please send it to us. You can send it through our website, email, or through mail. And I want to go through those contacts again right now, just so that you have them. Again, this information is on our website, where you can snap a photo. Submit your comments through www.i25approved.com. If you go there, we do have a public map, a comment map, where you can submit comments geospatially, so you can find the intersection or your business, and you can put a dot and make a comment on our public map. You can send us an email with your comment. Just send us an email to info@i25improved.com, or you can send your comment through the mail to I-25 Improved, care of Horrocks Engineers, and the address is 6001 Indian School Road, Northeast, Suite 250, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87110. We also have on our website, if you want to visit it, a printable comment form, or you can pick up a hard copy of that comment form at the New Mexico Department of Transportation District 3 office, which is located at 7500 Pan America Freeway in Albuquerque, or you can go to City Hall to get one. You can also call the hotline at 505-785-7623, and we'll mail you a comment form if you'd like to get a hard copy of the comment form and don't have a way to print one. Again, if you have questions about the project tonight, please submit them through our Q&A. It looks like we have about 10 to 15 questions to go through here in a moment. And if we don't answer your question tonight, please call us or send us an email. We want to talk to you. We want to make sure that that you are heard as part of this, and that we're able to work with you through this public process. I want to turn the time over to Justin Gibson. He is the New Mexico Department of Transportation District 3 engineer. He's going to take a moment to recognize and thank our public officials for their support and talk a little bit about what comments mean for this process.
Thank you, Bo. And with those that have signed in today, I'd like to introduce our public officials that on for the public meeting. Right now, what we have signed in is our NMDOT District 3 Commissioner, Mrs. Hilma Chinawith. And any of those that I may have missed, I do apologize. But now I'd like to thank all of the public participants in tonight's public meeting for I-25. This project is a big project that'll be from the Montgomery Interchange down to Comanche. And when we transition now into the Q&A session, we are soliciting your comments, which we believe are conducive to the execution of a successful public works project delivery. I now want to hand it back over to Bo so that we can enter the Q&A session.
Hey, thanks, Justin. Again, if you have questions, at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A function. Click on it, submit it. I request just quickly run through the 10 or so. As we read through them and answer them live, they will get dismissed into kind of an answer queue. So if you don't see your question in there, please type it in. If you do see your question, there is a thumbs up feature. Hit the thumbs up, it'll move it up the list. And so I'm going to go ahead and start with one that's at the top of the list, or it was. It looks like maybe we have one now that's a little bit higher. But I want to talk, Thomas submitted a great question about the current condition of the pavement on I-25. And I believe, Justin, I hate to just kick it right back to you, but I think you were going to talk a little bit about this. The question is really about, hey, the condition of the pavement's not great. It's hard on our vehicles. And it's going to be 2 years before you start this project. What can maybe be done in the meantime is what Thomas is looking for an answer to.
I do appreciate this comment from Mr. Frankel. He's reached out to the commission and to the district. We're actually, this is one of those joyous times that I can say is that we have found some savings from some of our contract maintenance projects. While it doesn't actually affect this project, it is within the project area. What we're looking to do is redirect some of our discretionary funds that are in contract maintenance that are savings from other projects to actually look at doing a shallow mill and overlay to remove I believe what Thomas is actually talking about is the raveling OGFC that kind of exists southbound between about the Jefferson area up to Comanche. And we're still evaluating all of our options, because one of the things that we want to look at is road scarring that may occur during the Montgomery project. So OGFC or a shallow mill and overlay with one of our contract maintenance contractors is being evaluated, but it does look like we're going to be able to redirect some of that funding that already exists from savings and actually address the southbound area especially. I can't say exactly what it'll be, but we are looking to make that improvement outside of this project.
Thank you, Justin. Our next question is from John, and his question is regarding what the traffic configuration is going to look like for businesses that are adjacent to I-25. Mike, I'm hoping that you can provide, or you could elaborate a little bit more on this, specifically focusing on what and where curb and gutter are going to go.
Yeah, so curb and gutter is planned along much of the frontage roads, but the question also talked about he's not worried about installing sidewalks. But yeah, the curb and gutter, part of the function of the curb and gutter along the area is collecting storm drainage. And so, yeah, that's part of the project that will be along those frontage roads.
Thanks, Mike. Jill, I'm going to turn to you, and Joe, you might want to jump in on this question as well. We have a great question from Kathy about bikes and pedestrians. Wondering if there'll be separate east and westbound, so bicyclists can go either direction on either side. And then will pedestrians be separated from cyclists is the second part of the question. And then there's a last question that I think may more pertain to the city, but I'm going to throw it out there and see, Jill, maybe if you know anything about it. It says, finally, will the city extend bike lanes to the rail runner station on the timeline?
So to first address the bike lanes for east and west. So currently at Montgomery, there are only facilities on the south side of the bridge. So this project will expand that to include facilities on both the north side and the south side of the bridge. Currently, we are showing in our conceptual drawings for a separated pedestrian and cyclist area. However, we presented to GATSI earlier this week, which is an active advisory committee within the city. And they recommended if it's going to be able to have a higher degree of separation from vehicles to look at possibly combining that. So we're not real sure of that configuration at this time, but facilities are being added. Likewise, at Comanche, there's a pinch point there right now, and the plans show, the long-range bike plans in the area show for facilities through there. So we will be adding on the north and south side of the interchange there as well, the pedestrian facilities. Sorry, the question kind of disappeared from my screen there. It was kind of multi-part, and let me just bring that back up so I can make sure I'm addressing everything. And as for city plans to extend bike lanes to the rail runner station on Montano, I do not know about that. I know that the city recently has invested in a I-25 bike gap analysis study. So we can look at that, or that's another great tool to look at. I can talk to my contacts at the city of Albuquerque and try to get an answer for that. And if we have your email somewhere, or if you can send an email to the project team with that part of the question, we will definitely get an answer for you.
Thanks, Jill. Our next question is about the design. So Mike and Joe, I'm hoping that you can answer this or provide some additional discussion. And this is just about what types of alternatives were evaluated, specifically interchanges like a single point urban interchange or a diverging diamond.
You want me to take a shot at that, Joe?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, single point, the interchange types were really fully evaluated in that phase 1B study that Joe referred to earlier in the presentation. And the one driving factor about whether a single point urban interchange or a diverging diamond interchange is how the freeway system interfaces with the frontage road system through here, which drives an awful lot of the configuration of the interchanges. And while they may have been considered, the applicability of those types of interchanges somewhat limited with being able to accommodate the frontage roads on both sides.
That's right, Mike. I just want to point out that our studies are available on our website, I-25improve.com. The phase 1A and the phase 1B and the supplemental phase 1B are all available. The alternatives are shown in that study.
Okay, thanks, Mike and Joe. Maddie submitted a two-part question. Jill, I'm hoping that you can talk a little bit about the budget. She's just asking about the cost for this project. And then I want to ask the second question separate. I don't see them as connected. So I want to separate those. So Jill, if you could talk about kind of the cost, and then I want to talk to Joe about business impacts along this stretch of I-25.
So funding wise at this time, our high level estimate is showing this as a $100 million project. Right now we have state and federal funds to address this.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Or Bo, do you want to ask your second question?
Yeah, Joe, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about potential impacts to businesses along this stretch of I-25. What do we expect as we finish this design and work towards construction in 2023? What can businesses expect?
So there'll be, obviously there'll be impacts during construction. So let me back up. There's two impacts. One will be a permanent type impact. And obviously this project is coming through. We're widening I-25 and widening frontage roads. There will also be construction impacts. This project is being developed for a design build delivery. Design build is basically a contractor will come in with an engineering team to look at options and alternatives that they see can be implemented and still meet the purpose and need for the project. Those will be cost driven, and they're going to be looking for innovative ideas that they could somehow win the bid. What we're doing on our end is we're putting together performance specifications for the contractor to go by. Within those performance specifications, we'll have an MOT, which means maintenance of traffic during construction. We'll have MOT performance specs that the contractor will have to follow. And those performance specs will be for MOT and for access during construction, detours, accesses to business during construction. We'll look at routes that can be detours, routes that can't be detours. And what we'll do is we'll give the contractor and his team parameters that they need to follow. We can't go out of bounds with these parameters that we're going to give them. So there'll be some impacts during construction to business access. Those impacts will be dynamic. They'll change. 3 months later, you may see nothing in front of your business. And then 3 months down the road, you'll see every piece of equipment out there that imaginable in front of your business. Our performance specs will tackle that in regards to contractor coordinating with business owners, access for their patrons and access for their employees. We're still going through that process now. We're writing those performance specs today, and we're coordinating with obviously Horrocks, the team, and as well as the business owners and you guys, the public.
Thanks, Joe. That's a great lead into our next question, which is was submitted by Brian Morris. And he wants to know more about the construction detour information. So Mike, can you discuss how the design build process informs those construction detours?
Yeah, so it's early. It's really early to talk about specific detour needs and how the specifics of those will work out. Talked a little earlier about the design build process and the ability to use it to promote innovation as they compete for the project. One of the ways that we see being able to leverage that nature of design build is to make how the contractor maintains traffic and during the construction of the project a goal, something for them to work on and improve on. And in addition to finding the best, motivating them to find the best solutions for maintaining traffic throughout construction and the less impactful detours as possible. Also promoting communication for them to work with the department to get communication out to travelers, businesses, anybody affected by the construction as to when different traffic scenarios or different detour scenarios might be implemented and what the timing of those will be. So there's a lot to figure out there yet, but it's one of those areas where we think we can use this design build process to improve on the overall value of the project.
And Mike, just to kind of add the secondary follow-up, I feel like Brian's question is really geared towards keeping detour traffic out of neighborhoods. Do you have any experience with that? What can we do as part of the design build process? Do we detour on those routes? We typically don't detour, but cars naturally find, the fastest or easiest way to get around. But Brian's specifically asking about construction detour traffic on nearby neighborhood roads.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a case-by-case basis with this particular circumstances of those roads and those neighborhoods we're talking about, how that would be addressed. And Joe referred to performance requirements or performance specifications. And if it's of value to do something proactive to prohibit traffic from entering in or using a neighborhood street as a detour, whether desired or not, that would be helpful for us to be aware of. So I would add to your comment, if there's a specific neighborhood or a specific street you might be concerned that there might be detours on, so that we can look at that and address that in our performance requirements.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Thomas has submitted what I would think is more of a comment. So I want to remind people, if you have comments, please email them to us. Please send them in. We want to collect them. But the comment references the U-turns and kind of their functionality. And so I'm wondering if we could pull up, and he's specifically talking about just traffic volumes of Montgomery and how he feels like the U-turns won't be successful because of the traffic volumes. And I wonder if we could pull up the slide or the presentation board that has the design on it. And Mike and Joe, maybe you guys could talk a little bit about how those will function. He's specifically concerned about kind of the 4 points either side where those U-turns will happen and potentially conflict with people getting on and off I-25.
Yeah, I like the statement about foreseeing dented fenders. But we're looking, I mean, these features are implemented a lot in Texas, and hence that's why it gets the name Texas Turnaround. And just so everyone understands the function, it is an additional lane that is separate from the rest of the lanes at the interchange that is solely meant to provide somebody the ability to, if they're going, say, northbound on the frontage road, to turn around through that lane and end up going on the southbound frontage road. That in order to accomplish that movement with those advanced U-turns in place today, a driver has to take a left turn through the signalized intersection on one side, and then another left turn through the signalized intersection on the other. So while there may be particular concerns about conflicts on the proposed U-turns, it also does eliminate conflicts with them traversing through two signalized intersections. The other point of that is that we also want to provide that the design for those cars making those U-turns are able to have a good vantage point to be able to view oncoming vehicles that they're going to be entering the stream of flow with. That's going to be the most important thing. We're not going to just put them out into the flow of traffic with a merge, that they would actually make the decision when to enter a gap to enter the stream. That might be more detail than we wanted to get into tonight, but I wanted to address the dented fenders.
Thanks, Mike. We have another question by Thomas, and he has really a suggestion that he wants the project team's input on. And he noticed that a lot of the vehicles exiting the freeway are headed towards Costco. So his suggestion would be building flying ramps into their parking lot. Justin, can you address that?
Yeah, I do appreciate the comment once again from Mr. Frankel. It's good to receive all comments, and while we'd like to do that for certain developments to alleviate traffic needs, the obstacles that we kind of come up against are, this is a public works project funded by state and federal money. So the regulations do prohibit us from directly benefiting some of the big box stores. I mean, all of us love the good deals at Costco. And if they're willing to talk about a developer funded ramp, it would be something that the DOT would entertain. But I kind of say that tongue in cheek, but there are instances on the interstate, and a lot of times developer funded interchanges do occur. But at this time with this project, it is a public works project with the only funding coming from state and federal resources, including bond funds. So it would unfortunately limit us from being able to put a direct ramp into Costco.
Thanks, Justin. Harry asked a question. I responded in writing, but wanted to kind of talk generally about businesses and property owners in this area. We've been trying to get out and meet with as many of the property owners that we can prior to this meeting, and we intend to continue to meet with them. We obviously have time before construction, before we get a design build team on board. And so we want to get out. If you have specific questions about your property, please reach out to us through email or phone. We want to answer them. It's a little hard, I think, in this setting. We probably need some back and forth to answer some specific questions about design and or potential right-of-way. But Wendy, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the right-of-way process and just a moment or two. I know we're out meeting with people, but could you talk just high level what we plan to do from a right-of-way standpoint as we work through these property owner impacts on the corridor?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So the process, once we get to the point where we can come out and make offers, we will hire an appraiser to come out and do an appraisal. He'll come out, he'll meet with each property owner. You'll have the opportunity to walk with him over the property. He will show you, what our design is, how much land it is that we need, whether it's an easement or a permit or a land that we are purchasing. At that time, you can meet with him, talk to him, go over any of your concerns. Then he will complete the appraisal. Once that appraisal is completed, we'll send that appraisal to a second appraiser. What that is he's just going to check, make sure that he agrees with the appraiser, what his conclusions are, check to make sure there's no mistakes. Once that reviewer has completed his review, we'll then send those to the DOT for what we call just compensation. They'll also review them, make sure they agree with the values and there's no mistakes in the appraisal. Once they agree with that, then we will get it back. We'll prepare an offer package and we will come out and meet with you and make that offer at that time. So that's kind of the entire process for the acquisition. And then once one of our agents comes out and meets with you, you'll have the opportunity to go over the offer, discuss value, discuss concerns. We'll get answers for you that we can. If there are any answers you came up with through that. And that'll be the acquisition process. Did you want me to discuss the relocation process or hold off on that?
No, I think we can work with individual property owners. Mike, what's the timing? When could somebody expect for us to come and start this right-of-way process? I mean, I know we've been meeting with businesses, trying to just do outreach and get them informed. We're looking for comment now on this proposed solution. And I imagine we'll be tweaking the design as best we can, based on some of the feedback we get and some of the needs in the community.
Some of that, Bo, is a little bit based on the property and what we're seeing is some of the particular challenges with those individual parcels as far as the timing. But generally, in order for us to start a right-of-way acquisition process, we have to have that environmental document that Joe was referring to in the presentation completed and in place. We're expecting to have that ready in the spring of 2022. And so we won't be making appraisals and making any offers and entering into any discussions until after the first of the year and whenever that environmental document is complete.
Hopefully, Harry, that answers your question.
Mike, you had mentioned the environmental document, so I thought this was a good time to just discuss what the environmental process looks like. So Jeff, could you just elaborate on what the purpose of NEPA is and how it applies to this study?
Sure. We identified NEPA earlier in the process. It stands for the National Environmental Policy Act, and it is there specifically for projects that use federal money to consider the effects of their project on the environment. And I know the typical perception of environment might not fit with an urbanized area, but there's a lot more to the environmental process than just addressing animals and plants and protected species. There are several things that are specific to urbanized areas, such as the traffic noise that was mentioned earlier, water quality from the runoff from the roadways, air quality, elements like that. So we will be working through each of those, evaluating them in the NEPA document. and submitting that for review and approval by the DOT and FHWA.
Hey, Mike, we got a good design question for you. I'm wondering if we can pull the Montgomery slide back up. But they're wondering if our design or the current concept design for the proposed action shows a raised median between the north diversion channel and the intersection that's just the unsignalized intersection just east of the interchange. And I don't know that it shows, this slide shows that very well. I thought maybe it did, but I don't think it does.
It's kind of on the bottom edge of this slide. But I was bringing up my drawing on my screen here, just so I can make sure I answer the question right. But the, yeah, that drive that's just, it's not the frontage road, but it provides access to a series of businesses, and it's right there just to the west of the Conoco station and the Speedway station. And that ability to go across Montgomery, there will be a raised median that will prohibit the ability to cross from one side directly across all lanes of traffic. So and then you'll be able to get in and right out, make right in and right out movements out of both sides of that. But then also there is a secondary access connection point between, and it shows up on that just right above that number 5. It says Best Western Suites Executives, Best Western Plus Executive Suites. There's that number 5. Right above that, there's an additional connection there for those properties and businesses to provide an access frontage, a frontage to the frontage, if you will. So I hope that answers the question. But yeah, that there is a raised median plan to go across, because there's just, for an unsignalized intersection, there's just too much conflict.
Mike, I do want to point out as well that if anybody has specific questions about the design, you can go to our website, and on that comment map, it does have current design. If you have questions about what you see on that map, and the nice thing about it's interactive, you can leave a comment, you can zoom in and out and see some of those details that Mike was just referencing. But if you see something you don't understand, feel free to reach out. We want to answer your questions as best we can.
Thanks, Bo. So one of our last questions that we want to wrap up with is how can you provide input? So that's a great question and a great time to review. So you can submit feedback through the interactive comment map on our project website, which is I-25improve.com. That's what Bo was mentioning earlier. There is an interactive map that you can zoom in and leave your comments on. In addition, you can call the project hotline, which is 505-785-ROAD. You can also email the project team at info@I25improve.com. And you can also mail in a physical comment form. A form can be found on our website as well as at the NMDOT District 3 offices or the Albuquerque City offices. Just a reminder that all comments should be submitted before August 27th.
Okay, that pretty much wraps up all the questions that I see in the queue at the moment. Want to thank everybody for joining us both through Zoom and Facebook. Looks like we had good participation. And again, like Macy said, if you have input, please send us your comments. If you have questions about the design or your specific property, please don't hesitate to reach out. And again, just thank you for participating tonight. Have a great evening.